Cochlear implant is a tool, a technology that helps people hear better. They take an electronic device and put it into the skull. And there's like a magnetic device also, and there are electronic impulses that stimulate the brain, and with practice a person can learn to interpret those impulses, and it'll be as though they're hearing. But it takes a lot of training. It works best with young children. I think it could help them, but if you ask me, I think it's just too risky. Because a hearing aid helped me a lot. I'm not wearing it now, but when I put one on, it really helps a lot. And I think that the benefit is pretty similar to the benefit that people get from cochlear implants, so I really don't think it's worth the risk. I wouldn't get it. I guess to improve their hearing. I would say I have about 30 deaf friends. Most of them are deaf without the implant, but I do have some friends with the implant, and it all depends. You know, you hear about people who are doing very well with the cochlear implant, but the ones who benefit best were not completely deaf. People who are completely deaf, it really doesn't help them that much. And also it's better when you're young, when you get the cochlear implant. Children have to go through a lot of work, training and work, to learn how to use and interpret the sounds that come from the cochlear implant. The way I see it, children do just as well with the hearing aid. They do very well. I would just like to add one more thing. I work with children now, and from my experience, the cochlear implant has changed a lot, and it has developed, and you know, there are people with the old technology and some with the new, and I work with children. Out of 8 of them, 2 have the cochlear implant. The others just use the hearing aid. It seems to me that the most important thing is that the parents be very involved in the children's lives. In the children that I observe, I think the people with the children with the hearing aids do better than the people with the cochlear implant. They have better skills at lip reading, and they just do much better. There's a lot of work involved, a lot of training involved with the cochlear implant. Elementary school was tough. I would tell the teacher I was deaf, so I had to sit up front, and that's basically what I did, trying to follow along. But then my mother transferred me to a school that had more resources, and it was much better. It was still a struggle, but it was a lot better. There were always people there to help me, and I understood the material a lot better. In high school, most of the teachers wrote on the board, so it was easier for me to understand what was going on. But once I started college, I was totally overwhelmed. And I said to myself, that's it. I need an interpreter. I need a note taker. And even as time progressed, I realized I needed tutoring also. It was still a struggle, but as long as I made sure I got the help that I needed, everything was fine. Without those resources, I would have been lost. I did meet a student in high school that had the cochlear implant, and it was very interesting. It looked different. I was very curious about it. So she explained to me what it was, and it was a little scary. I can't imagine myself getting that. But, I don't know, she seemed to go through the same process I did. She still needed help. I always thought that once you got the cochlear implant, you wouldn't need an interpreter anymore, but she still needed an interpreter and a note taker. It's odd. I always assumed that once you got the cochlear implant, your life would completely change, but it's not true. Interesting. I do have a friend with cochlear implant. Sometimes, though, I feel better than him. Maybe it's because I depend on facial expression and body language, and he just relies on the cochlear implant. So sometimes I feel like I'm hearing better than him, and I'm deaf. But really, some people think the cochlear implant makes you like a robot. I don't think that. But at the end of the day, when you take the cochlear implant off, you're still deaf. At this point in my life, I would not want to get a cochlear implant. I'm so used to my life. I use a hearing aid, I sign, I have deaf friends. To suddenly change my life like that, I really don't want to. I think that for myself, I would never get it. But everybody can make their own decision. If you want a cochlear implant, go for it. I don't really think that learning has to do with hearing per se. Well, I mean, a deaf person might be delayed if he can't hear, so he might be behind in school, but I don't really think it has anything to do with his ability to learn. And everybody processes information differently. So I suppose one student might benefit from the cochlear implant, but I think everyone is individual and everyone learns in a different way. I just thought I'd let you know, many hearing people think that deaf people don't talk or can't talk, but it's not true. All deaf people can talk, but some people choose not to. It all depends on the family they come from. If a deaf person is born into a deaf family, they would be most comfortable signing. If a deaf person is born into a hearing family, he would probably speak and sign. Some deaf people don't even know sign language, and many deaf people have hearing family and parents. Deaf people can speak, they just choose not to. Sometimes deaf people have hearing friends, and they manage to communicate through lip reading, or maybe they might speak for their friend. So don't assume that if a deaf person isn't speaking, he can't. And don't assume that a deaf person doesn't understand you, because it all depends on the deaf person and their educational background and their family. Just thought I'd let you know. Hi, my name is Matthew Lickman, and this is my sign name. I have the cochlear implant. I got it when I was in the 3rd grade. It was in the year 1993. I'm 18 years old now. My family is all hearing. When I decided I wanted the cochlear implant, my parents researched about it, and they said they didn't think it would be successful for me. But I said I wanted it anyway. I didn't care, because I really thought that it was going to work.
but I was wrong. Yeah, I did. I believed a long time ago, I believed that once I got the cochlear implant, it would make me into a hearing person, but it didn't. I was average. Really the same as before. Hi, my name is Tony Sacente, and this is my sign name. I'm deaf. I'm from Brooklyn. Then I moved to New Jersey, and I'm living in New Jersey now. I work as a deaf interpreter and American Sign Language teacher. My whole family is deaf. Actually, I'm the second generation of deaf in my family. The third generation, my nieces and nephews, there are some deaf, some hard of hearing, and some hearing. Yes, I do have one friend. I knew him for a very long time. Very good friend. Very strong in the deaf community. He went to California. And then, I'd say 3 months later, he came back. He shows up. I was at work, and I was shocked. He told me he got the cochlear implant. I couldn't believe it. Naturally, it did influence our relationship. It was a big shock to me. And actually, I think that it influenced his attitude towards me. He's not the same person as he was before. Our friendship really changed. I respect him, but really there's nothing left of our friendship. I would never try and influence someone about whether or not to get the cochlear implant. I would say examine your options. There's cochlear implant, there's deaf school, they have wonderful deaf schools. And I would advise people to educate themselves and then make their own decision. I could never tell anyone what to do. Really, it depends on the age that you get the cochlear implant, how old you are. If I were to get the cochlear implant now, or as an adult, when I was in school, I definitely would have struggled. Absolutely, I would have had a culture shock. I suddenly would have been hearing these noises that I wouldn't know what to do with. You need therapy when you get cochlear implant. So yeah, that would have been bad for me then. Really, you asked me how I felt mainstreaming with hearing people, but I actually did not mainstream until I went to college. I went to Rochester Institute, and I took some courses with hearing people, and the hearing and the deaf were mixed, and there was no problem. I felt like we learned the same. Of course, I had an interpreter, and they didn't, but I kept up. I passed my classes. I did fine. Really, it's very sad when the parents go to the doctor with their deaf child. I wish the doctors knew better. I wish they told them about the various options of deaf school and about the deaf community. They have choices. And let the parents think about it, make an educated decision. Because the parents really know nothing about the deaf community. They just see it as a negative thing, and they freak out that their child is deaf, and they want their child to be hearing like them. And it's sad because the child suffers. Really, what could I say? I just wish the doctors knew better.
You know, I'm so happy that you and I have a chance now to talk about this extraordinary experience we had the past semester.
It was so wonderful for me. Thank you for having me here, by the way.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
You know, I understand it was your first time
it was my
having
first...
a deaf person in your classroom.
You're right. I've been teaching now with CUNY almost a decade, and it was my first experience having a deaf student in the classroom. And for you, it was your first experience...
As an interpreter in a deaf educational setting.
So we really have
educational setting, yeah.
So how did you find the experience in English 111, which is a writing course?
I loved it. I really loved it. And being in the class and having you really engage, the students were engaging with each other. You had them in a circle, so everyone had eye contact. And for a deaf student to be there was wonderful. So she's sitting in the front, which usually deaf students do, and the interpreter sits in front by the desk in front of the classroom. She didn't get to see anybody. She wouldn't be able to see anyone speaking.
See,
but so in a circle was fabulous.
I didn't even, and I do that naturally. I like the circle because I think for all students, it's really important for them to have the eye contact and to engage.
Absolutely, and the gestures and, you know, we may miss something. You know, as an interpreter, if I'm hearing you and then all of a sudden someone starts speaking, she actually read lips a little bit, so she was able to really see everything that was going on and understand the whole, experiencing the whole essence of the whole experience of that class of 111, which was wonderful.
And I think that, for me, anyway, it was such a great experience. First of all, Bridget is extraordinary.
Beautiful woman.
She is such a hard worker and so inspiring that for me, it was, I can't say I have any special strategy for that class because when you have a gifted student in your classroom who works hard, she was an inspiration for everyone else.
And me as well. As an interpreter, absolutely. And I saw that, yeah.
And didn't you see that with the other students?
Absolutely, and they really, you know, they really took consideration when they did their presentations. They would ask us first, you know, should I speak like this? They would ask for direction from me as well, what would help me. They were so helpful. And the visual with their presentations and keeping Bridget having a deaf student in mind. They really considered that, which I was really surprised.
No, you're right. And for me, one of the great moments in the classroom was when we did the presentations.
Loved it.
Wasn't that great?
It was great.
And it was so good that Bridget was able to use her talents as a producer, as a visual creative artist, and give a fantastic presentation.
Fabulous, yes.
On her own without the interpreter.
Right. Right, and she didn't even need us, and she didn't need to voice.
She didn't
just
need
put everything
you, Jeanette. She didn't need
you know, it's a nice break as an interpreter because I was able to sit back and enjoy it myself, you know?
Yeah, and the students really enjoyed it.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think she set the bar high because if you notice, the presentations were very dynamic.
Absolutely, they were really diversified, yeah, and really, I think in your classroom as well, and for Bridget, you know, as a deaf student, let's face it, we're in a hearing world, so being into a class setting where everyone's just speaking and, you know, talking to each other and able to communicate that way, she's shy in a lot of ways. She was bashful, but she really, and not only Bridget, but other students, and the way you instructed your class really brought that out, you know, brought them up. Set a bar. You set the bar for them, and you just really made everyone feel comfortable and encouraging. And I was nervous, you know, going into class. This is my first year as well, so but I have to fake it.
I think we all have to, but
right.
But for me, I have to say the credit goes first of all to Bridget. She's just amazing. I just think she's extraordinary. So it was really no extra work at all. And also for you being in the classroom, I remember the first day, because you always came to class early, and I get there early, and Bridget arrived early. And from the first class, you made the students feel really comfortable. You said, listen, you know, I need you to speak clearly, and you were very polite, and they really listened to you. So my experience, because Bridget had asked me to talk about this, was that I felt that the students in their responses were so much more thoughtful.
Exactly, exactly. They had to be conscious.
They had to think before they spoke, and I think it really elevated the discussion and it helped the students to really be better than maybe they would have otherwise. So I think that it was a fantastic experience.